I'm Tamika D. Mallory.
And it's your boy Mysonne the General.
We are your host of TMI.
Tamika and Mysonne's information, truth, motivation, and inspiration.
New name, new energy, but
same old us.
What's up, Mysonne Lynn? How you doing today?
I am blessed and highly favored, Tamika D. Mallory. How are you feeling?
I'm doing good. Summer's still in progress. Beginning of August, other kids going back to school around the country, but the northern states, particularly in New York, we don't start until September. So this is kind of a midway point for us for summer. Thank God, because the traffic in the city is much less during the time while the school buses and the teachers and the families picking up and taking their kids to school are at home. So that's good. I'm not rushing it. And you know, it goes fast. That's all I can say, is that summer goes fast. I feel like as soon as we go to Martha's Vineyard, it's the end of the summer.
Yeah, summer goes fast. I think it's only pretty much like 1 month. Like July is really the whole summer, because by August everybody is worried about, okay, we got to get ready for school, this and that. So the whole month of July and probably that last week of June is really summer. Like summer really kind of ends.
I wouldn't say
August.
It ends August 1st.
I mean,
I think about the
I don't
15th.
really say that it ends. I'm just saying that that's when it winds down.
Yeah, it to me, it's around the 15th, and it's definitely when it starts getting cool at night. As soon as at night it starts that you need a jacket and all of that, that's when you know summer's over. Start getting the school clothes ready. It's time to go back. I'm like, you know, my granddaughter, obviously she's in daycare. She's in school all year round. So they don't really have like summer. So it's not like, so I'm not in that mode with her yet. But soon and very soon, she'll be going to kindergarten, where she'll be, you know, at school during the, from, what is it, September to June. Yeah. Shoot, they go to school till damn near the end of June. I don't feel like your kids go to school to the end of June.
Yes, they do. They get out like the last 23rd, 24th or something of June.
Mm-hmm. You see, I think I'm like one of the parents.
Yeah.
I'm like the third parent.
Nah, it's 23rd, 24th. So it's the end of June. So I'm telling you, July is pretty much the only, but they go back in September. They go back the first week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the halfway point.
I guess.
1st of August is the halfway point. So that's a good thing. We're hanging out. We're living up summertime in New York City still. People are enjoying it. You know, I would say that the nightlife in New York really picked up this summer to me. Like, you know.
People was outside this summer.
Not just nightlife, but just social climate. It really did pick up, and the older people came back outside. And when I say older, I mean our age, people 35, 40, 45 and up, really came back outside, reclaimed some of the spots that used to have, you know, good events, because all of that stuff has started closing down. It was actually pretty like, damn, I feel like Eric Adams ushered back in the nightlife, the
he got
social
him a little bit
life.
Henny, he was outside.
He was getting his Henny and his cigar. But I mean, I do feel like that because people started opening spots again. Everything was closed. When people would come to visit, they would say, "Where we going?" And I'd be like, "I have no idea." But also we were out of the city so much during these last however many years in this state with Breonna Taylor's family, all of, you know, back and forth, just wherever we had to be, that maybe we didn't have we didn't know exactly the spots, but now I know like 10 spots.
Yeah, because, you know, I know a lot of the promoters, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to Sleep, Losing Isaiah, you know, Fish. People started really promoting parties again, and they was like, yo, I would get an email, or I'd get a text, or I'd get a DM like, yo, this spot is open. You know, especially in Harlem. Harlem had a lot of stuff going on this year.
Yeah, it was in Brooklyn too, because I somehow or another I got in the Brooklyn algorithm. I think it was from the Kwanzaa crawl. They go to the bars and restaurants and whatnot during. I think they had started it, Kwanzaa, and then now they also have a summer date. and I am in their little algorithm. And Brooklyn was popping too. I don't know what was going on in Queens, but I will say, and people probably be like, why do y'all care about that? Well, we do, because people deserve to have some social experiences, and they became places that you would see people from all different walks of life. There'd be like elected officials. There would be people who are like us that are in activism. There'd be people who do parties. There'd be people who just, coming out the street. Like, I appreciate that. And the violence was limited in those areas, which is a problem because younger kids who would never go to the parties, like, they would never be in sangria, right? Yeah. They're not in the Bronx. They're never going to be in sangria. They are somewhere, though. And where they are is where the shootings are happening. That's where, and we talking about 12, 13, 14-year-old kids. So that's a lot of where you see the separation, because when we were out and we were 30-something, hanging out, I don't know if I was ever 30-something out with y'all. Y'all was always 40 and I was 30-something. But when we were out and we were mixed in with the 20s and whatever, that's where it didn't go right. But the 20s are not so bad right now. It's the 13, 14, 15-year-old kids.
Yeah, the 20s is starting, because a lot of the 20s is going to the clubs with us.
Yeah, they're trying to get in.
I see a couple of them inside the spots that we in now, so they trying to be with the grown folks. They hanging out with the aunties and the unks.
Yeah, but the 13s and the 14s, they need a lot of attention, because we had a big meeting with the city and the deputy mayor Renita Francois, when she first did her meeting with the violence prevention groups. Angelo and I were there. For those who don't know, when we say Angelo, we're talking about one of the 4 co-founders of our organization, Until Freedom, attorney Angelo Pinto. And we went to the meeting with all the heads of the crisis management system, which is the violence prevention group. And, of course, they whipped out the data because, the city's going to say we're funding these organizations.
Yeah.
Almost $100 million, needs to be much more. In fact, I think the mayor did put some more money back into CMS, because under Adams' administration, it got cut from 100 to 86 or something. Okay. So he put some money in to build it back up. And, their thing is, we're going to, of course, celebrate the wins and the success that is safe. The city is safer than it has been. It depends on where you live. So that's always, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole today, but whatever. Anyway, the city is safer. There's less violence, less rapes, less, all the things, because they don't just look at gun violence the way that some of us kind of have that narrow focus. They're looking at violence in general, hate crimes, domestic violence, all of that. And so they've seen it's a steady decline in those things. However, the one thing that they did bring up is that the data suggests that young kids, 13, 14, 15, are probably one of the most vulnerable populations. So for people who are like, what do we do and how do we support and how do we get involved, and you care about our youth, that is one of the most important things that we could be doing right now, is trying to strengthen our youth organizations, making sure that there's more outreach, looking under your children's mattresses, in their book bags. They're not adults in your house at 13 and 14 years old, turning their shit inside out, knowing the password to their cell phones, because good kids get guns in their hands as well. And as we know, with the 14-year-old out in Queens, it was kids just having a regular fight and somehow a gun went off and this boy ended up dead. So, That's one of the things that we should be focused on.
Yeah, pretty much. I think as we talk about the violence in the community, it's been a lot. It's been scattered. Just looking, I seen a young 12-year-old was killed a couple weeks ago, and I feel like there has to be a more succinct approach. I think we got to get back outside again. I think, we started doing a lot of work, but I think we got to get right back into the communities. I was thinking about strategies, right? I see a lot of these kids live stream. I was talking to you about it a couple weeks ago. about live streaming, like really going to the communities, live streaming, doing intervention work, talking to some of these kids, because I've realized that that's what they're into.
The streaming
thing. So I think like some of us violence interrupters and credible messages need to start streaming that type of content, going to the communities and grabbing up these kids, having conversations, like going to the vulnerable communities and really letting them see what's going on. And I think that'll be, very instrumental in a lot of the change.
You look very young, right? You look very young, but you're not that young, right? Like you're what do they call it? 50
half a
cent?
century.
Half a century. Then they say something like a quarter, nickel, something.
Half a man.
Nah. Something that got to do with coins, but whatever. So I think that also we have to make sure that we're training the next generation, the Nassans being your son and Tariq's, my son, and Kylie, which is Jamila T. Davis's son, and and all of these younger people, we've got to really train them to be, because they are very good technically. Like these kids know how to run all kinds of like software and and design, and they're into the AI space. They're doing all of that, and they have stories, right? Like Kai, which is Jamila's son, can talk about being a child whose mother went to prison and left him behind, and that is a sensitive issue for young kids out here right now, that there's a missing parent who's in prison. How do you overcome that, right? Tariq has his own story. His father was killed when he was young, never had his dad, gun violence took his life, and then the story goes on, and so on and so forth. Nassan has a story of you being away in prison for 7 years of his life. They need to be empowered and trained within these organizations and spaces. And I know the crisis management system does it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that there has to be even more resources pouring in, that you don't get rid of the elders, because even we are advised by our elders. We actually have an elder coming up on the show today. But even we are being advised by somebody, right? An elder. So you always have to have the elders in the space. But people who are your age, my age, and older also have to recognize that we cannot stand in the way of the next generation taking their rightful place to do the work with the generation behind them. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes we have people who are older who stick their foot in the door and are unwilling to move for anybody else to come in. And that, I think, stunts our growth as a community.
You're 100% right. That's why I want to do streaming, because I know that would attract the young kids, and they would want to be involved in the work and see it as something that they can, cool. It'll be trendy if we go streaming and we out here and we grabbing up and we saying, hey, we raising kings, so we want to grab the next young kings that's going to stop the violence in the communities, and we're going to empower them, and next thing you know, they got 1 million followers, and we got 1 million followers, and now people want to be a part of it.
Right.
That's what I've always said about this work. When we make it sexy, when we make it trendy, when we start giving it the same platforms and the same, level of advertisement and that we give everything else, then you'll see these kids want to be a part of it, because there's a lot of people that when they don't realize the work we do because they don't see it. So if it's highlighted and it's amplified the same way that people doing negative, not even just negative
stupid
things,
stuff,
just stupid stuff, and they got millions of followers and this and that. If you can get millions of followers for doing the right thing, for stopping violence in your communities, if you start transforming the minds of these kids who are naturally leaders, but they just leading in the wrong direction, and they don't understand that you can actually lead in a positive direction and get positive results and be successful. And these are conversations that I have with people all the time because they don't know it, and a lot of times when you don't see that, you have to see it to be it. You don't see someone successful in a way. Like I always tell people, when I was young, I didn't want to be a lawyer, a doctor, any of that. I actually did want to be a lawyer, because I used to watch Perry Mason, and Perry Mason made me want to be a lawyer when I was young. But the average person,
telling your age, the kids don't know nothing.
They don't know nothing about Perry Mason. Him and Matlock and all these. I used to watch those shows.
Perry Mason was good.
It was. That was one of my favorite shows. But that's why I wanted to be a lawyer. But I didn't see that in my community, right? The only level of success that I seen with somebody was either a drug dealer. I seen basketball players have success. You know, those were the things that were celebrated. They had the money you wanted. They had the girls you wanted. So I say all the time, if we really want our kids to transform and we want them to do positive things, then we got to amplify and show them positive people who are successful and respected. You know, so that's just
that's important.
It's very
That's
important.
important. I appreciate that. We have to elevate the positivity and put the same amount of resources behind advertising and all of that, because a doctor or a lawyer or somebody, unless they are saying something that, you know, they talking about, I don't know, stank coochie or something, they don't get as much attention, right? Like, you can't just go and be smart online and receive the type of attention that you deserve without having to add some types of tricks and gimmicks and this and that to you know, make it pop. And that is, I believe that is by design, right? That the algorithm is pushing stupid shit to our kids, just like they pushed crack to us, to our families, which was the major destroying factor, COINTELPRO in the movement. There has all, they all, you know, you what do they do in this era, not this era, but a little bit earlier, it was you know, you stole money from, and they still doing that, still embezzlement. Like, they have found ways to break down all the positive things in our society, and you know, pills, then the twerking, wars. I mean, it always is something that distracts us. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that's when people say, what are the solutions? There are many, and the solutions begin with things like us taking the time to click a thing, like a thing, share a thing, and not always be like the one that everything you post, everything you share is drama, battles, gender wars. Take the time to make sure that even if it's only got 2 comments on it, that you're a part of a community of people who are pushing positive things. We could do so much just from our phones, just from our houses, sending $5 to a local grassroots organization. We can do that. And so don't look for this big solution. Bring your solution very, very local and on a micro, macro level, which means that it may be small in focus because it's just your area, but it's macro because those people and those ideas need help and need support. So
exactly.
So that's that on that. We done went off on a whole different thing, but to get to our topic today, speaking of young people, Tuskegee University says no bonnets, no durags, no, you know, slippers and pajamas and all of that going to class. Keep that stuff in your dorms. Keep it to your privacy. And, you know, there are 2 very distinct arguments out in the universe that I understand on both sides. I completely understand the people who say we're policing how people dress. That is not, that shouldn't be a major focus for us. That we're out here policing people's attire. You don't know their situation. Sometimes, not for nothing, especially Tuskegee University. You talking about black kids. Black girls get up in the morning time and your hair just ain't right. Like, it just ain't right. It just ain't right. You just all over the place. You might have your menstrual. You going through stuff. You got issues at home. And you might not have the ability, the time, or even the desire to fix yourself up. And so your headscarf might just be where you at on that day, right? Well, let me just finish the point. That might just be where you are. And I'll tell you that there's some hypocrisy in this, because I personally will say that I could see a bonnet and feel completely disgusted by it. But a durag, I don't feel that way, because durags have been made so, you know, culturally accepted, like it's a durag. You see men in durags all the time. Although in my household and in my family, everybody knows, and my son knows, you ain't going nowhere with me with no do-rag on your head. Take that off. That's because I know better. But I'm just saying, it doesn't make me feel as cringy as when I see somebody with a bonnet on walking through the airport. So, but I understand people who feel that we shouldn't be policing people's attire when you're trying to actually get people to graduate. And if they doing well in school, perhaps just getting them there is a part of the process. Then there are people like me, so I'm putting that up front, like me, who were raised that everything don't go everywhere, that you wear certain clothes in certain environments. You don't bring your bed clothes, because I'm gonna tell you, it's nasty. Number one, because if you wear a bonnet outside, you don't have two different bonnets. You ain't got a bonnet for the outside and a bonnet for your bed. You wearing that same funky ass bonnet on your head outside to wherever you going, and then bringing it back and bringing the germs and putting it back in your bed. Same thing with pajamas that you wearing to the airport, where people done travel from China, Mexico, wherever else, all over the United States. They get on the plane, whatever they got, boogers, this, that, whatever nastiness that they putting in their seat, and then you sit your ass down on top of it with them pajamas on, and you're not gonna tell me that you have pajamas that's just for traveling. I don't believe that. It's nasty.
No, I completely agree. I think that there has to be some level of decorum, right? And especially when you go to higher learning, when you go to college, it's higher learning. It's preparing you for society. It's preparing you for real life. And in real life, when you go somewhere professional, you're not wearing a bonnet. You're not wearing pajamas. You're not wearing slippers. So I think you have to be able to separate the times from where you wear those kind of clothes and the times when you do things that's professional. When my kids go to college, I want that level of structure. Especially my son is 15 now, and I'm giving him structure. There's certain things that you don't do. There's certain things about hygiene. There's certain things about the way you dress and things of that nature that you're supposed to understand as a young man. I think when you go to higher learning, those things should be implemented. So I wouldn't want to be in class and I'm coming and I think even to learn, right, you should want to put on clothes that make you look a certain way.
Right.
Because I tell people all the time, it's not all about what you know. Sometimes it's about how you look, your perception. You can get a job just based off your appearance. If your appearance is not right, then everything else becomes secondary.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that you need to be dressed up in the highest fashions and spending money trying to keep up with the Joneses. But pajamas, bedclothes, I'm gonna have to put do-rags in there, because even though, like I said, the hypocrisy is that I don't see it the same way, but I am going to put it in there because I know better. Do-rags and hair bonnets and headscarves and all of that. Those things, by the way, inside of your home need to be clean, right? And put it's sort of sacred. You taking that into your living space. Yeah. When you go out, you need to be at least preparing yourself to be out in the world, right? To your point, to prepare yourself to be out in the world. I want to go to church. I saw my cousin, Kim Abney. He wrote this whole post about going to church was a place where you learned how to wear a suit and tie. You may not have had anywhere else to go for the entire year that called you to wear a suit and tie unless somebody got married or there was some type of very, very special function. A lot of people don't have families that have weddings or family reunions where the Saturday night is the banquet. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't have that. They're not in organizations. So guess what? If they go to church with grandma or mama and family, they put their Sunday's best on. This is how you learn how to actually be able to have duality, that you don't just look one way all the time. You're dressing up, right? You're dressing up, or your change up might not be the tie and suit, the look exactly as some of the, the older images of what it looks like to dress up. That may not be the case. Okay. Nowadays, And you have to credit people, Russell Simmons and Kevin Lyles and people of, at that time, they changed it to where you can at least wear a pair of sneakers with your suit. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of lost having to have a tie on all the time. I think that's okay. Create your own style, right? You don't have to live in a box. But wearing your night clothes, your house clothes out into the world, to me, is completely unacceptable. And I don't really, everybody has their opinion. So I'm not going to sit here and say that someone else who feels like people should be liberated to show up as they are, that they are wrong. I'm saying that as for me and my house and me and my family, and what I will teach my granddaughter is that when we go places, we clean up, we get ourselves together, and yes, we go and we learn and we try to excel, and we understand that there are standards. We should be calling ourselves to a higher standard.
Exactly.
And if you want to tie this back to what we were speaking on around these 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are out here with guns, they out here killing the people, killing themselves, there has to be a correlation here where we're dealing with this idea that being an intellectual person who actually thinks and tries to gain knowledge about topics and also has a level of understanding and grace for other people, we're dealing with a serious decrease in that. Like, you could just say anything, be, not even necessarily knowledgeable about topics, and then you somehow become an expert just because you was able to say the hot thing that got everybody watching, right? Yeah. That became trendy. Then over here, you're dealing with people telling us that we shouldn't be trying to be politically correct. So now just be as you want to be. Wear your bonnet on the airplane. Where when I was growing up, you got dressed up in a real nice, it was Sunday's best in order to travel on a plane. Now just wear your stinky pajamas and go to the airport. Everything is starting to diminish. And by the way, even our movements are suffering with some of that, where people either don't take it as serious as they should, or folks are unable to keep the spark and engagement in the movement. And so, there's enough finger pointing and accountability to go around as to what people should be doing to keep that elevation of the spirit, elevation of the fight, elevation of the excellence and all of that. Yes, we absolutely have enough fingers to point, but we've got to be able to start somewhere, and there's got to be some kind of standard. And I think that our young people have to be taught that you don't take everything about you in every space that you go in. You compartmentalize. It doesn't mean you fake. It doesn't mean you're phony. It just means that when I show up at church, I don't sit in the pew, put my foot up and start cussing and eating fried chicken. That's not what I do while the sermon is going on.
You just have to have versatility, and you have to understand that there's just a time and place for everything. And I think no better places than college, because college is supposed to teach you about the next level of life. You graduated from high school, the childish, the teenage, the mid-teenage. We able to just navigate and teach you. But at that point, when you go to college, it's about making real life changes. Yeah. It's about growing into the man and woman that you'll be. And you need to understand in society that you can't show up with pajamas in professional places and people take you serious.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So last week we weren't in studio, but still, as we talked about a couple things that I want to circle back to while I'm on this here camera, because I need to talk back again about the Black organizations closing down. Here's part 2 of my thought of the day from last week about Black organizations closing. So number 1, there were people who thought that the organization that we posted, because we posted an example of the topic, and it's an organization called Black Visions, and they were making an announcement that their organization was shutting down. And when I posted it, the caption did not say that this is not Until Freedom, which is our organization. Okay. And so there were people who reached out to me to say, like, keep your head up, supportive conversations while, what can be done, a few people, which sparks some other dialogue. But I want to put a pin in that and say that Black Visions is not our organization. Our organization is called Until Freedom. And we do not know the reason why Black Visions closed. Mm-hmm. We were just using it as an example to show that there are so many. Black Visions is not the only organization. There are many that I have. Some of them have closed without discussing it. Some of them have closed and made big announcements. But there are many organizations that have closed down and or they have conjoined with other organizations because they don't have the resources to keep going on their own. And so, but let's just be clear. Until Freedom, like most organizations, is struggling as well. We are not at the point of making an announcement of closing our doors, but we could be, right? If we are not able to get the type of investments that we need from various places. We have many different funding sources, whether it be from individuals, it's individual giving, it's individuals who have, resources at the level that they can actually help us to sustain ourselves. Most of us work another job, 2-3 jobs. We've got all types of other things going on, which sustains us personally so that we're not putting so much of a burden on the organization to care for our personal needs, which, by the way, the work that we put into an Until Freedom every day, we should not be having to work 17 other places. Because I can tell you that what that does, it diminishes people's ability or limits people's ability to be able to work the way that we want to, the passion that we have for the community, the effort that we want to be able to give. It's hard to do when you got to get up and do 3 other things so that you can survive. But most Americans are doing that. And especially Black people and definitely Black women, because they say we've got to have 7 different forms of income in order to sustain ourselves and our families. So we all hustling and whatever. And so therefore, when I see an organization closing, it's just it's knocking on the doors of most of us, and even the big organizations are experiencing a cutback in resources that they were receiving. But those conversations that started because people thought Black Visions was us really led to some important conversations that gave me a part 2 to my thought of the day. One of them, or a few of them, were people who have lots of money, right? And sometimes you can say people have lots of money and you don't really know what they have. So we shouldn't say that. But on paper, they look pretty good. Just put it that way. And, when they were reaching out and they're like, we're working on things. We're trying to figure out ways to be more helpful. There's so many different groups reaching out. I have not been one who is asking people to send $5,000 and $10,000. Yes, that is great. That is important. And if you have $5,000 or $10,000 and you want to send it to Until Freedom right now, we appreciate it. You can go to untilfreedom.com and make a donation through Act Blue, or you can get in touch with us and get us that. But we've been focused on trying to make sure that we secure real investments, like not that those are not real. Let's be very mindful, but more investments so that we can sustain for a longer period of time. And so these people are not calling to say, I got 5 bands to help you out. They're calling to say, listen, we're looking at ways that we can structurally support many organizations because we see the bottom falling out. But there were 2 people who contacted me and said, damn, like, what's going on? And I said, we told y'all.
Yeah.
When y'all was on your shows and going on interviews and going around doing radio shows saying that diversity, equity, and inclusion wasn't the main thing. It wasn't that important. It wasn't working for Black folks. We were only getting a small piece of the pie. We told y'all that the narrative was dangerous. Not that we don't understand the data and what the data shows. The data clearly says that white women and other groups benefited from DEI more than Black folks, which is what it was intended to. It was pretty much like the child of affirmative action one of those things that people, Reverend Jackson and other people, came up with this idea of really going into organizations and institutions and corporations and putting departments that focus on equity, right? And so that is obviously important, but as with everything that Black folks have, somebody gonna come do cornrows, Kardashians, and now they the cornrow people, and now they the best cornrow people that ever cornrow. Meanwhile, our people created that so that we could put rice and other things in our heads all the way back in Africa, right? So they always do that. There's always appropriation. There's always people taking advantage of us. Nevertheless, the idea that people did not understand that the end of DEI, the attack on DEI, the criminalization of DEI ultimately meant Black people. Get rid of Black people. Yeah. And the problem is that people who do not understand the framework of Project 2025, and they really did not sit and read and digest what that document is, they don't get the connection with the diversity, equity, and inclusion attacks. Because when those folks say that they want to restore America to the white male, or they didn't say that, they said the American family, which to them, they're talking about the nuclear family. They're talking about a man, woman, and notice that I'm taking my hand down a notch when I get to woman, and children. And they are speaking about white men, white women, and white children. Just go look at the websites for all the different departments in the federal government. They have wiped out the photos that show diversity, that, you know, had all different types of communities, Indians and African Americans and whatnot. And they have basically pictures of white folks, white children in schools, white people working, white people. That is what they're speaking about. So diversity, the end of diversity, equity, and inclusion was not just some one-off idea that it wasn't important. It was a part of a plan to destabilize Black communities. And now when you see these organizations closing, it was a part, their plan is actually working. And so the individual, one or two of the individuals said back to me, you know what, I hear you. I didn't get it. I didn't see it. Now I see more of what you're speaking about, but I didn't get it. And I can tell you one of the fundamental problems, and I'll be done. Both individuals continue to take me back to George Floyd and the commitments that were made under the George Floyd uprisings when everybody saw racism for the first time and said, we've got to funnel money into the Black community. We're going to do better. Right. And so they keep saying, well, I did a report, or we have reports that shows that even though they committed X amount of millions, or $340 billion or something like that, we never received it. And if we did, we just got a slither. And this is where I just want to say for the record, if your understanding or your conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion starts with George Floyd commitments in 2020, you do not know what you're talking about. Yeah. And it's not disrespectful.
You just don't know.
You just don't know. You don't have the proper analysis of where diversity and equity and inclusion started, and understanding that they're not talking about a 2020 commitment. This is going back. This is not only just traveling back many years. It's also covering so many different aspects of things that you don't think about. You don't realize that a part of DEI was looking at people who are handicapped and how when they show up at work and school and other places, there were resources to be able to ensure that those people had access the same as a person who was not other able, right? You're not looking at what it meant for women, what it meant for our young people, institutions that had to build in DEI in colleges and other places, because when people were applying to get into these institutions, they couldn't get in, not because they weren't qualified, but because these different departments, admissions departments, were overlooking people who look like us, and therefore they had to build in things that would allow them to measure that and to stop it from happening. So you're speaking about George Floyd. That tells me, and these are people who have major platforms. So when they go out and they go to these big meetings and they're sitting down with all of these corporate giants, or they're sitting in places and they're sharing their perspective, people trust you because you are Black, and they think and you're successful, and they see you tapped into the culture, so they think you know. Meanwhile, you really are not that well knowledgeable. You're not that knowledgeable about the implications of what this attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion has done, what it is going to continue to do, and what Project 2025 really is, and how DEI plays into making Black folks back subservient. We never got out of it, but we are going backwards in a way that is very, very dangerous.
Everything you said is spot on. And for me, it's just common sense. Because if everything was merit-based, right, then they wouldn't have never had to implement DEI. Right? Mm-hmm. If you were just being able to get hired on your own merit, if because you were qualified and you were educated, and if you did the right work, why would they have ever had to create a DEI in the first place? Right. So how did somebody trick you to believe that a policy that was put in to help you is no longer needed? And when they took the policy out, they took the people out. Right? So if you look and see now that hundreds of thousands of Black women and men have been erased from the workforce. Mm-hmm. And you telling us that we didn't need it because they knew what they was doing, even though white women and other people were benefiting more from DEI, we were the one that was going to get harmed because they took it away so they can eliminate your jobs. They wasn't eliminating Susan from her job. Mm-hmm. They wasn't going to eliminate Pablo because he was going to take the less pay for his job. They was going to eliminate you because you were highly educated and you were moving and creating generational wealth for yourself. Mm-hmm. We were taking over. We literally have over 100 people in Congress inside of elected officials. We created a Black caucus that they want to eliminate now.
That's right.
So all of these things, if you're not paying attention and if you're not really civically engaged and you don't have civic knowledge, then you shouldn't be talking.
Well, some people have civic, it's not, and I'm glad that we have our guests coming up now to kind of not so much talk about this, but at least I know it from listening and learning history. And I think that that's part of the problem. You could be civically engaged and not know history, so it doesn't connect to anything. You're just kind of living in the wilderness and you're trying to do the right thing. I'm not taking away from people who know that they need to cast their vote. They know that they need to show up and be a part of their community. But when you understand, to your point, why was diversity, equity, and inclusion ever needed in the first place, then it all starts to make sense why they would want to get rid of it. And what you have to also be very mindful of is that there are multiple things happening at once. Today, I was on a long conference call listening to two things. One was a report from Dr. Wes Bellamy, who we have to have back on the show because they have, obviously there's been so much focus on Black women who've lost their jobs or who have been pushed out of the workforce in many different ways. And I always have to remind people that once you're pushed out of the workforce, that's only one issue, right? That now also sponsorships have been cut, departments have been closed down, where people have been able to tap in as a lifeline for community, for scholarships for their young people to go to college, for businesses to get resources that they can't get from the banks. So this is a trickle-down effect that has happened with Black women. Right. The report that Dr. Wes Bellamy has done with his students in his department at Virginia State University is to look at where Black men are. Black men have lost about 650,000 jobs. Black men are the fastest declining. They're saying that Black women is kind of flattened out a little bit at this point. Like they did the damage. They got rid of a bunch of people. They pushed people out, made people feel like, let me take the package and go home.
Because it's simple. It's easier to do. See, this is what they always do. They said, we're going to get the women out. And then some of these men said, yeah, they don't deserve to be here anyway. Get them out of there. And then once they got rid of them, they got rid of your Black ass.
So first they come for you and then they come for me. So you're not exempt. And so now black men are the second group. But by the way, the economy is falling. Like
Definitely.
there are economists speaking about this every day. Whenever you attack people who pour $1.4 trillion into an economy and you take our resources away, you are going to suffer. But, that's another day's topic. We should have an economist on to talk about that. And so that is one report that we heard, and it's very startling. But the other report was on ICE raids. You've got Haitians now who have lost their TPS status, and they are putting ankle monitors on Haitians.
Yeah.
They are putting ankle monitors where you can still live in the U.S., but they are tracking you. So if they want to pick you up and throw you out, they can do so. They are creating in-home prisons with tracking devices on Haitians. Shackles, exactly. Shackles on Haitians. This stuff is literally in front of your eyeballs. It is happening. Why do you think that a society under a Project 2025 framework would want to deport immigrants who haven't done any, people making pizza, not people who are killers, people who are making pizza at the pizza shop? We don't care. Nobody cares if the person who cooks, who makes the pizza at the pizza shop or does or whatever, even if they have a different job, a fancier title, we do not care if their child goes to school and we got to pay for free lunch. We want to pay. Like the guy on the internet, what did he say? If free lunch, I want to do it.
Yeah,
take my money.
I want the kids to have free
for
lunch.
The free lunch. I don't care about that. But why would a society decide that those people need to be deported, criminalized, some of them even killed, and then all of a sudden they want black people not to be working? What do you think that these people are trying to do?
It's not what they're trying to do. It's what they're doing. They're definitely disenfranchising us, and they're taking away all of our resources. Because I always say, when I look at the Matrix, right, we remind me of the virus. Like anything that we touch, we control. And they know that. Immediately, once we've learned their systems. So that's why I say every 100 years they have to disenfranchise us, because once we learn a system, we master it. And once we start mastering it, we just like a virus, and we start taking over their shit. So they say, no, we got to stop them, we got to cut them off, and we got to start them from scratch again. And this is what they keep doing.
And they do it. And the
internet, do it all the time.
And the internet has become one of the biggest threats.
The media has always been the biggest threat.
One of the biggest threats. So not the internet, because there's very good resources on the internet where you can become more knowledgeable, you can share, you can connect, you can meet with people.
But it's social media.
But social media has become one of the biggest threats to our empowerment and our unity.
Because they know how to
doing
work
a good
the algorithm.
job.
They put the loudest, dumbest voices with our colors in front, and they amplify that, and they make those people seem like they know what they're talking about.
That's right.
And they don't know nothing, and they just be talking heads. And immediately when you put them in front of somebody that actually knows something, you see they don't know nothing.
Right.
And then what happens is they don't care, because you got people like Trump
they don't change.
that what you just they follow this cult mentality, and they keep lying to themselves. They don't even admit that they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
They just keep on running with the lie, and most people don't care because they want to believe the bullshit anyway.
Yeah.
So
if you give them, believing the truth means you got to do something
exactly.
about it.
So if you just keep on to let somebody say dumb shit and they just live with the lie and just keep on saying it over, Trump could just keep saying the same thing over and over and over about we see it. We at war with a country for absolutely no reason. And now we negotiating to get back where we was before the war started.
Yep.
And they saying the same shit over and over, and people believe it. It doesn't even make sense.
That's right.
But if you keep on saying something over and over, it becomes the truth. So that's what's happening right now.
Yeah. Well, it's a trick bag, but it's not funny.
And we in it.
That's right. So we rarely ever, probably never, talk about the topics for an episode during the episode. But this time, I think it is fitting of our guest, who is one of our friends. Y'all know it's a big thing that we have to have our friends on that are doing amazing things. And today, for this particular episode, what came to me was the woman behind the power, Cora Masters Barry, on love, leadership, and legacy. Because that's what we're going to talk about.
No, come on now.
Okay.
Come
The
on
woman
now,
behind
mama.
the power. I mean, that's you.
Okay.
You are the power.
All right.
Right?
Well, that sounds like fun. I'm glad you finally told me what we were going to talk about.
Exactly.
I kept asking.
Yeah, what I told
She
you
tried to
is
sneak it on you.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't
know.
because you know why? Because you are the type of person that if I would have told you, then you would tell me that's not good. Take that out. Put that over there. So I just avoided all of that by not telling you at all. But I'm so glad that you took the time to come up and visit us on our show. It's one thing to be virtual. It's a whole different vibe to come into the studio and spend some time with your mentees.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about it for a long time.
Yes.
I watch you all the time, and of course, I cheer you on and correct you
Yes.
from afar. But, you know, it's a great show, and you guys get important information out, so.
Yeah. So thank you for coming. Let me tell y'all who Cora Masters Barry is. Another thing we don't do is read bios. But we're going to do all that today because when you have greatness in your midst, you need to get it right. And I want to just read a couple of things, not the whole bio, but just some things that help to bring you up to speed as to who this woman is. So TMI is so proud to welcome Cora Masters Barry, the former First Lady of Washington, D.C. Some people would argue that she's still the First Lady of Washington,
That's right.
D.C. A political strategist and educator, a trailblazer, and once boxing commissioner, which a lot of people do not know that this woman was the boxing commissioner.
And wrestling.
And wrestling. We got to figure, we got to talk about all of that. A staunch youth advocate. Like, too much of a youth advocate probably for some people because she becomes the children's parents and the parents' parents.
Yeah.
To make a community come together to ensure that our children get what they need and deserve. And she's the founder of the Southeast Tennis and Learning Center, which you and I have celebrated in that space.
Amazing space.
The work that is happening with our young people from Blacks and Wax, which I think we should be bringing back. We'll talk about that off camera. And just other programs and things. I mean, we've been at Southeast Learning and Tennis Center with Venus and Serena Williams. We've been there with other celebrities. We've been at fancy, fabulous engagements, but we also have done community work out of that space. And so you'll have to tell us why you invested. You could have done anything with your life once Marion Barry was no longer with us, the great, honorable former mayor of Washington, D.C., but you decided to pour into young people, and I want to hear more about that. He was a 4-term mayor?
Yeah.
4? I thought it was like 2 terms.
No, 4.
I don't know why I meant 4-term mayor. Wow. How many were you involved in helping him reclaim?
Well, I met Mary in 1971.
Okay.
So I was involved with his very first campaign when he ran for school board when he was at Pride. So we've been friends, colleagues, political allies, comrades for many, many, many years before we got married. So I would arguably say I was probably very much involved in everything that he ever did.
Wow. 4 terms. I mean, that deserves its own conversation. What it's like to 4 terms through adversity, racism, and everything. And I think the thing about you that is most, it makes me slightly emotional, is that you are the wind beneath so many people's wings. And so it makes perfect sense that you were there with him from the very beginning, because I'm sure if he was sitting here now, he would say, I couldn't have done 4 terms without the machine of the Cora Masters Barry and others who helped him to get where he was.
Well, I think that the drama of Marion Barry is well known across the country, so we don't need to reiterate that. Everybody knows it, but it was because of that he did 4 terms. Mm-hmm. That when Marion was set up to be taken down by the government, simply really because he was too many black people were making too much money, and they had tried to set him up with money, but Marion never cared about money, so they could never get him taking money. They could never bribe him, but they knew he loved the streets, so they called him in the streets.
He loved the streets.
He loved the streets. Oh yeah, now he was a great man, but he loved the streets, and they called him in the streets. But when it was all done and said, just in context, when they had the trial, I think 14 or 15 counts, most of them were felonies. He was convicted on a simple charge of simple possession, a misdemeanor. That was it. And the judge was so angry.
Was he?
That judge, I've never seen. His name was Penfield Jackson. That sounds like somebody sitting on a plantation, doesn't it?
Cracker
He was
Barrel.
so mad. He was so mad that he sentenced him to 6 months in jail. First term, first offender, misdemeanor, simple
crazy.
possession, 6 months.
Man.
Made him great.
Made
him great.
We got to talk about how you tell us that our knocks are a boost. So, sometimes.
But that's how he got that 4th term, though.
Because he had been knocked down.
Well, if they had just given him his fair thing, given him
people would just
what do you call it? Community service,
Yeah.
a fine. They'd have loved him,
Some
but they put him in
probation.
jail.
Yeah.
Right. Made him a king.
made him a martyr. They
Made
said,
him a
man,
martyr.
listen,
They said,
man.
really? That's what y'all gonna do? So we're gonna bring them all the way back. That's
Yeah.
what our people can do when they really, really understand their power.
Absolutely.
So for me, right, so I'm doing a little history, and I see that they say your mother ran for president 4 times.
Yeah, Dr. Isabel Masters.
Wow. That's amazing.
Oh,
Yeah, she was way ahead of her time.
That's why I see you have all of that in you. Yeah, you could have been the president. Easy.
Who wants to do that?
I know. Who wants that job?
Oh my God! But she was something else. She got her PhD at 68 years old. My mother was a single mother. She raised 6 kids and college educated every single one of us.
Wow.
And then went back and got her master's degree, and they did a big spread of that in Ebony. You can look it up. And then went back and got her PhD at 68 years old, and was politically active. Didn't care much for the Democrats or the Republicans, but she ran the Looking Back Party. She was the nominee of a couple of the alternative parties.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. How was that? Were you involved? How old were you when this
I
was
was a
happening?
grown woman.
Oh, well,
Oh,
the
yeah,
first
she was
time?
kids.
The first
When
time?
my mother decided she was running for president, I was a grown woman. And she was running the last couple of times. She was running at the same time Jesse Jackson was running. And she was
Lord.
mad at me.
She
She was like, "You supporting Jesse?" I said, "Ma, I'm supporting you too." So, but she was serious. She was way ahead of her time. Way ahead of her time.
What were you doing for Reverend Jackson at that time when he was running for president? And whether or not you were close to him is not important, but what was life like?
My support of Jesse Jackson was through Marion, because Marion is the reason that Jesse ran for president the first time. When we did a street naming of Marion. I don't know if you were there a couple of years ago, and we wanted Jesse to speak, but he couldn't. So he did a video. It was a lot of effort, but when you did the closed caption, he talked about the fact that when he wanted to run for president, he went to all the big city mayors. He named Maynard Jackson, he named Carl Stokes, he named Hatcher. He said, and they all kept saying, now's not the time, now's not the time. Then they said, well, I went to see Marion Barry, my brother. He said, we'll make the time. And so that's why he ran, and that when he ran, he announced his candidacy from the we can tell it now, from the city hall, convention center at Washington, D.C., where Marion had given all the D.C. government workers 4 hours of liberal leave. So when you saw the cameras, you thought all these people were there for Jesse, and they were government workers. That's what they did.
They had leave, so they could choose if they wanted to go.
to be at the convention center when he's announcing.
That's strategy.
Yeah, that's
love that.
strategy. That's when you could use the power for empowering your own. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and your father was a Marine.
my
The first black?
Yeah, he was the first black Marine.
Wow, the first black.
The very first.
Wow. Did he? How did he pass? I don't remember you telling me.
He passed natural death, but
Okay.
as a political scientist and a historian, I have something that I call the Jackie Robinson syndrome. There are no accidental firsts when it comes to our people. And so everybody who has been the first, from Barack, everybody down, some white people were sitting somewhere saying, this is what the first has to look like and be like. So with my father, you would think that he was just the first one that showed up. That's not what they did. They were recruiting. He was on a bus. There's a college in Oklahoma called Langston University. We're all out of Oklahoma, and he and my mother were on the bus going between Oklahoma City and Langston, and they saw him. He was nice looking, was well spoken, whatever they was looking for the Negroes then. And they talked to him and asked him would he be interested in being the first one enlisted as first black Marine, and they set up a meeting. They came. My mother had to sign approval to do it because they didn't want to be, I think what they told me, accused of breaking up a family and by sending somebody off to war without the approval of the spouse. Now I don't know what that was about.
Wow.
But yeah, so they recruited him.
They did. Okay, cool. So then, but your mom still raised you all as a
when
single?
He came back from the war and realized that he almost lost his life over there for a country, and then when he came back, he was sitting in the front and the back of the bus, and the prisoner of wars, the Germans and the Japanese were sitting in the front of the bus.
Wow.
Oh no, that was the history of World War II. They came back. The black soldiers came back to Jim Crow.
Wow.
And all of that, you came back, and my mother just summed it up and just said he was shell-shocked, so she took us all and went to California.
Wow. And that's right. So you were in, so where was that at the time before California? Where was your mom and your dad?
Oklahoma City.
They was in Oklahoma City. Then they went to California, raised y'all there. How in the world?
My mother did it. My mother left my father in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, went to California. How did you get to Washington, D.C.? Help me. Help us understand.
We would just say that'll be in the book.
Okay.
I mean, I went off to college and eventually ended up in Washington, D.C. to work on my master's degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a plenty in between
In
that
between
little.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we talk about that offline because I really don't know the answer to this, so I need to know. And then, how did you meet Marion Barry? Were you active, engaged?
The way I met Marion really actually was I was working on my master's degree at Howard University, and it was in the evening. I was working on public administration. Met a guy, and we were at a place called Billy Simpson's, me and 3 or 4 other people in between. I guess we might have, whatever we're doing, getting a break, and said he was on his way to Walter Fauntleroy's house because he was going to run for non-voting delegate, and did we want to go? So we said, yeah. So we went, and that's why I started sort of doing politics, because I think that was just where I was. But I didn't meet Marion then. I'm a Delta, and I was at a Delta meeting at the YWCA in Washington, D.C. I was sitting in the back. I didn't know most of the people. I was from California, and he came in with a dashiki. And
super
I was
black.
over there,
Super black.
And I said, who is that? And they said, that's Marion Barry. I said, ooh.
Oh.
He was so arrogant.
Oh, Lord.
He had that swag, and when he came there, he was campaigning. He was campaigning for Walter Fauntleroy, for he was supporting him as non-voting delegate. He wasn't running for anything. He was still head of SNCC and Pride, but that's the first time I saw him. He was very arrogant.
And you liked him anyway, because that's what we like.
I mean, I've always liked those kind of men. But at that moment, he was just arrogant.
And he felt you was the first love, not first love, but he fell in love with you.
So we know that you were the first lady, but you are a brilliant, phenomenal woman in your own right. What are some of the accomplishments that you've done that you're proud of?
Well, I always say I never had a plan for my life. So my life really has been a life of basic, organically following something that's inside of me. And it almost always is for the greater good, up to a point. Now, there was a point that my leadership took everybody where they weren't supposed to go. When I first went off to college, the dean of students called me and looked at me and said, Miss Masters, The only reason you're not on a train on the way home is because you're only one person. And you can't be doing all of this. So I have always had a leadership, just depending on how I was going to use it. And at some point, God said, okay, get over here and make some sense. So I just went from one thing to another. I've always been very interested in young people. Always. I just think it's important the earlier you can get them. So almost everything that was in my life, no matter what it was rooted in young people. I didn't go to college for that. I didn't graduate and do education or anything. I was in public administration. Mm-hmm. But everything that I've ever done, I mean, even if it was the boxing commission, the most I've accomplished in the boxing commission, I changed how they did the rules to protect the health and the safety of boxers, especially young people. I started a program where they competed among the Washington, D.C., New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. We called it the Mayor's Cup. And I always went to young people. And then Marion became mayor in historic fourth term, and I really, and that'll be in my book, did not want to do that. And I didn't.
Really?
No, I did not want to do any of it. But that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother book. Mm. But at some point, I was there, and we had broken a lot of records. We had made history. Mm. And I read a magazine article the other day that I did back in 1996, and the Marion won, and he took office in 1995. And I talked about whatever I did, it would be to empower young people. I started an organization called the Recreation Wish List Committee because Marion asked me to head up his inaugural. People were giving hundreds of thousands of dollars for a party, and I was like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
So I just took some of that money and put it to the side and started an organization to help with recreation. I didn't want to kiss babies. I didn't want to go to teas. I wasn't going to make new friends just for old purposes. Mm. So I just empowered my community, and we started an organization, and then we would go around the city and put in boxing gyms and computer labs, baseball diamonds, and then tennis courts one day, and then God gave me another vision to build on top of the tennis courts a building, so here we are.
Now
25 years later.
And the connections there make me it's so interesting, because sometimes we think if we started out here, we have to follow exactly this line in order to be successful or to get where we're traveling. But you show that you can move around and apply your skill set in many different ways. So you're a professor, a political science professor. Mm-hmm. At what college was it?
University of the District of Columbia.
Right. So the University of D.C. for 26 years, and also boxing commissioner.
At the same
these
time.
Are two different things, completely different things that most people would never say that you can do one and the other, because they would say, well, what do those two things have to do with each other? And I'm sure being the boxing commissioner took you to nightlife and had you out. I mean, we have that picture, which I intend to put in the show, of Muhammad Ali and you sitting at the banquet or something that you all are at. So, you're working with Muhammad Ali, and while the struggle is real, we know the movement was strong and all of that, there's still funny stories of things that was going on, personal lives and issues, and all of that. So talk about that diversity of self as a woman, that you're not stuck to one thing.
Well, go back to my mother. We never got anything defined for us based on gender. It just never got discussed. Mm. She modeled that a woman could do and be anything. So it took me a very long time to realize that there was such a thing as misogyny.
As you being a woman.
Me being a woman, I didn't think that was an issue until I was put on the boxing commission. I asked Marion, he asked me what I wanted to do. To put me on the boxing commission, because we had tried to do a fundraiser, and there were big fat men sitting around not doing their job.
White men?
No, big old fat black men. With all of them were just trifling, smoking big cigars, and the ring wasn't up, and I was like, I want to be on the boxing commission.
So you weren't in the boxing.
No.
So you just happened to try to work with them on something.
We was going to do a boxing match.
Yes.
As a fundraiser for, again, the recreation department. And in order to do that, a boxing commissioner is a regulator. Mm-hmm. A boxing commissioner is the one who gives a license to a boxer, a manager, a trainer, a promoter. All of that has to come through the commission. You have to have certain criteria to be licensed. That is what a boxing commissioner does. Mm. So in order to do any of those things, we had to go through those incompetent people. So
what did they do when you showed up?
Well, now that's a whole nother story. When it was announced, it's a long story, but when it was announced that Marion was appointing me to the boxing commission, I was the first woman in the country. All hell broke loose all across the country, and I didn't understand it. He did.
Oh, man.
He asked me, what commission do you want to be on? He kept trying to put me on the real estate commission, the ABC board. I said, I don't want to do that stuff. And then one day I said, I know what I want to do. I want to go on the boxing commission. He said, the boxing commission? And I said, yeah. And he said, are you sure? I said, yeah. And this is what he said to me. He said, well, I can handle it if you can. Oh. And he went on about his business, and so did I. And then a couple of months later, they gave me a call and said, I've been nominated to go on the boxing commission. I'd totally forgotten about it. And then about 2 weeks later, after the word broke, and all this is, on the internet, so you can just pull it up, the lady called me to tell me that there had been a letter submitted to the city about me. It was a letter that had been submitted with no signatures.
No signatures.
They accused me of everything from drug dealing to prostitution.
You lied.
It was an amazing letter.
Amazing.
It was, from prostitution to drug dealing. I was like, she said, you have to. That was before emails.
So you still have a copy of this letter?
Yeah, I'm sure I do.
Oh my
So
God.
I ran over there to look at it. I was at City Hall, and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. I'm a professor of political science. I can't have people saying these things about me. I have a moral turpitude clause for my job. So I started calling the mayor, and he was busy. He was being the damn mayor. Yeah. So finally his secretary, her name was Pat Selden, I called about the 10th, 12th time. She said, Miss Cora, the mayor will call you when he gets a chance. I said, I'm not getting off this phone till he gets on there. I don't care what you say. I'm going to come up there. And I was in City Hall, so he got on the phone. He said, what's up? What's up? I said, they got a letter out, blah, 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 blah. He said, I told you I could handle it if you can.
Wow.
So that was him letting me know that you didn't understand what you was doing.
Don't call me on my job.
I know this is gonna be a big deal, but because you think you all that.
Right. And I can't tell you no because you're gonna fight me over it.
But okay, you want to be that? Okay, I'm gonna put you on there. And the rest, that's a whole book by itself.
Wow. That is wow.
Wow, that is really crazy.
They lost their minds.
They were coming for me, and the way I corrected that, because once I realized, to your point about it, once I realized I wasn't gonna get no support from the mayor, he told me, that's your look. You said you want to do
your part.
it.
Yeah,
now you go handle your business.
Yeah.
I was separated from my husband. I called him. I said, will you come to my hearing, because I had to be confirmed.
Meaning that y'all were not in the same house,
separated?
We were separated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not friendly. Yeah, Moses, my Tamara's father.
Okay.
I called him and I said, will you come to my hearing? He said, yeah. My girlfriend owned a Sprino home. She gave us one of her funeral cars. We picked him up.
This is so good.
And picked up my 2 daughters from school, and they showed up in the funeral car. Like, we're supposed to be in limousines, right? This is a funeral car.
My God.
So we go in there. And I'm sitting there at the hearing, and the place is full because, I'm being nominated to be on the boxing commission. And the woman who was chairing it, whose name I won't call, didn't like me that much. And I could tell she kept looking at this letter, and she kept looking over there at my husband. And she said, Miss Masters, I understand you're separated. Is that your? Yeah, I said, yeah, that's my husband and my 2 children right there.
But y'all was separated.
Yeah.
But he had to go.
Well, I said, we have a modern marriage. In other words, now read this in public with my children sitting there. Read it. And it hadn't been signed. So she said, well, we have some here, but I'm not going to enter into the record since it hadn't been signed. But I promise you, if I had not done that, she would have done
Strategy.
that.
Wow.
Strategy.
That was the strategy. And I was like,
And you were confirmed.
oh, yeah, I was confirmed. I was commissioner for 10 years. At first, I was just a commissioner, and then I became chair of the commission.
Was Muhammad Ali boxing at the time?
Oh, my God, yes. I came into boxing when Muhammad Ali had just lost to Leon Spinks. And I met the people at Leon Spinks in Hilton Head, and they were training for the rematch in New Orleans. So, yeah, he was boxing.
Wow. What was that like? Just please give us a little Muhammad Ali, honey. Because you know Muhammad Ali was the man.
But he was the man. But he was, he was just really the same.
Arrogant.
No, I'll give you, you're not familiar with Washington, D.C., but there's a hotel called the Hyatt right there on H Street. And I don't remember why, but we were all sitting, one of those hotels that's everything is open. The restaurant's outside. We're just sitting out there. He was on his way off to Iraq or somewhere to do something. And I said to him, I said, Muhammad, he's called Muhammad. I said, you better not do that because I'm telling you now you're going to get in trouble. You're not Jesse because, Jesse was, y'all young.
Yeah,
but Jesse was going and getting prisoners and stuff like that. I said, you're going to go over there and mess up and then you're going to get in trouble. And he said, they ain't gonna do nothing by me. If I mess up, they gonna say, "Oh, Muhammad Ali, they took advantage of him." He said, "If I do good, they say I'm the greatest." And I saw that and I said, he's right.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He said that I can't lose. They'll just say it's their fault. Who like that now? Trump.
Oh yeah, but it's different.
Yeah, but
it's
he was a
different.
great guy. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
He liked a lot of women though.
Oh, listen, his ex-wife is telling her story right
Yeah.
now. She's saying a lot of things. I've been watching the clips of her talking about the things that happen. Anyway, let's go. Let me say that you and other women, including my own mama, will tell the story of how the men love the ladies, probably a little bit too much. But somehow y'all still navigate it. See, we are at the age, or we are in a time where cheating is like the worst thing that could ever happen.
So is that going on now? So that's really a thing now?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a big problem.
It's crazy. They'll lynch you about it.
Well, they were lynching back then too.
Yeah.
But y'all kind of what was the thing? Was it that they were taking very good care of you all as women? Because that's nothing. Like, I'm not going to work myself down to the bone and then have a man that's out here being with other women.
Well, first of all, cheating is different now than it was then. Prior, as I was getting up in age, that's when all this AIDS and all that stuff started coming. Cheating took on a whole different dynamic then than it used to be. And I just think different generations of women did different ways of dealing with men. I wasn't very tolerant of it. I never have been. Neither was my mother. That's why she raised us in California. But, my relationship with Marion withstood all of that as friends, but our marriage didn't withstand it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a quote.
That's a quote right there.
As friends, we were able to get through it all.
Yeah.
But marriage, it was a no-no.
No, not for me. No.
Whoo, this is so good.
We could do this for about 5 more hours.
Yeah.
No, we're stopping right now. This is part one.
We got,
right?
no. We got a little bit more because we want to go to Venus and Serena.
Oh, okay.
So, the center that you have, this amazing space, we met Venus and Serena there. What was the inspiration to open the center?
Well, again, back to the conversation about the Recreation Wish List Committee, the inspiration to open the center was always to utilize anything that we have in our community to empower and change the trajectory of our children. So tennis is one of the best mechanisms. It's one of the best sports any kid can get involved in, but it wasn't available to us, not on any quality level. So Venus and Serena's appearance on the national stage helped with the vision I had to build the Southeast Tennis and Learning Center. I think that if they were not there, I don't think it would have been that easy to do it. But
How did you meet them?
I met them because of my husband and I and people that were very much into tennis went to the U.S. Open. I'm trying to think the very first time. I was watching tennis one day, and Venus was playing at Wimbledon, and they still had the beads, and so there was something going on about that, and she had melted down. And I remember being very emotional. I had never met them a day in my life. I remember being very emotional about this black girl with these beads, like being in the world and all these. I mean, I just felt so. And I was like, just come on. I'm talking to the TV. So she came on. That was before they built the Arthur Ashe Stadium. This was the Louis Armstrong Stadium, which is still there. And so she came to play against a white girl named Mary Pierce, who had big old braid. She's known for it, big old braid down her back. This girl was 15 years old, and she's playing against this journeyman, this girl, Mary Pierce. And I'm sitting in the box along with some other people, and the people are cheering for Mary Pierce. Now, you got to understand, this is the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
And I'm on TV, so I'm not going to say the U.S. effing Open, but this is what this was.
Yeah.
So I started saying whatever, I don't know whatever I was saying. So a white lady looked up at me and said, well, it's really just about the underdog. I looked at her, I said, turn around. I know what you're trying to do, and thank you for that, but I know what I'm looking at. So when Venus won, we were sitting cat-a-corner across the court and I saw Orsine jump up to leave, and I jumped up.
That's her mother.
Their mother.
Their mother.
Where the lobby is out there where all the people come in, and I jumped up and I cut her off.
She was leaving.
Yeah, she was leaving. I mean, she had won. That's what they always did, to get up and leave, but I cut her off. So I introduced myself, and I was standing there, and Richard come up. That's a whole nother conversation. But I was very, very upset about it. And she was very calm. She's got a calm personality until she doesn't. And she said, her answer to me, I think it was when I fell in love with them. She said, we're used to it. Woo! That was right here for me. Why? Why are you used to it? This is the United States of America. That's a black girl. They should be cheering for her. We're not going to be used to this. And that just changed everything. And that's
you and her became besties.
Yeah, and are to this day.
Yeah, that's right. And the children. And you and so, to your point, you were asking about the center.
Yeah,
well, you were saying.
Yeah, well, building the center, she went her way, I went my way. She left her husband, moved to Washington for a while and I had a hip replacement while this thing was being built. I'm just skipping over a whole bunch of stuff. So we had just put the ceiling on. We had did the cutting of the you sign a beam, and when you're getting ready to put the cover on the building. We had done that. I had my surgery, so I was bedridden. Isha called me and told me that her mom...
Who is Isha?
Isha is their daughter, the oldest one. The oldest one was killed, Tondiway in California, so Isha was the next oldest, to tell me that she was going to take her mom to look if I could let her in. So they let her in so she could see. It was no windows or anything, so they came to visit me. Marion went, had the security go buy some spaghetti, some Maggiano's, because they liked Italian food. I entertained them in my bedroom. It was Isha and Orsine and Marion and myself. I'm in the bed. And Orsine said to me, she stood over me. I remember it like yesterday. We talked about it the other day, and she said, so when you going to open it? And I looked at her. This was in January, and I said, when Venus and Serena can be there, and not a day before. If they can be there tomorrow, we'll open it tomorrow. If they can't be there to this time next year, we'll open it this time next year. I'm not opening it until they can be there, because this center represents who they are. The community represents the community they came out of. So all of that has to be, identified. And she took out and back in the day, she had a BlackBerry. And she was, at that time, still controlling the girls. And she looked and she said, "We're available April 22nd. Can you do it then?" I said, "We're opening it up on April 22nd. And that's how they came.
Wow.
She came, the whole family came.
Wow.
So rich with history.
So much history.
Wow.
You like such a historian. Like, we call you, and you tell us so many things. Like, I remember you introduced me to Huey P. Newton's wife. And I'm like, she just knows everybody. Like, you the madam.
I'm just glad that I'm alive so that I can keep bugging y'all about the history of everything.
That's
it's
right.
important.
That's right.
But you made a really good statement. I was so proud to hear you say it. That if you don't know the history, you're just operating in a moment. You're in a bubble, and it's.
And one more question, because I know you got a lot to do. But we were talking about DEI earlier, and then you gave us the history of DEI. Can you give that history of DEI for us real quick?
Well, first of all, I want to say one thing before we even talk about that.
Okay.
We're talking about in this country about what they call democratic socialists. I want to announce to everybody, please, this country has been socialistic since the 1930s. Please go back and look at the New Deal under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. After the capitalistic society fell apart and people were in bread lines and there were no safety nets, he did the same thing Trump did. He packed the Supreme Court and got those programs under him. Came New Deal. That was Social Security, public housing, welfare, food stamps. All of that came in the 40s and the 30s. So we've always had a socialistic country. Where do you think supplementing the plus the farmers are? All of that socialism. Those are all safety nets. So I'm saying all that to say, and that went fine. But that didn't solve the problem of Jim Crow. So by the time we got through all of that and got through Jim Crow, although those social nets did help black people too, it did trickle down because I remember we had, look, things you punch. We had for eating, food. There weren't food stamps, but there was some things like that. And we lived in public housing at the Jordan Down projects for 9 months before we moved out. So we benefited from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But when the 1964 and the 1965 Voting Rights and Civil Rights Act passed, Johnson said, we got to do something called the what?
The New Deal.
No,
you said Johnson?
Yeah, that's war on poverty.
Okay.
It's war on poverty, and that's when he came up with affirmative action. And he said, you can tell everybody that they can now the discrimination is gone. There's no more rules that say you can't do it, but that's not fair. You've had the superior education. You've had the opportunities. You have to give people a head start.
That's right.
And that's where affirmative action came from. That was the origin of the NDA, and it had its backs under Reagan. He's the first one to start dismantling some of the programs coming out from on the Johnson. Carter held him for a minute, and then he got caught up in Iran, and that was the end of that crap. Trump learned from that. But that's where it started.
And then DEI becomes the sort of like the child, which I said of affirmative action.
Right.
It was kind of like the tactics.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
and you broaden it because initially it was about black people.
Right.
Initially, affirmative action was really about leveling the field because they had such a head start. But then it became women, and then it just broadened to be more.
And that's very similar to the Voting Rights Act. Right. That it started out being black folks fight, but then that we actually opened the doors for other communities, for women and other people to receive their voting rights. There's so much history. You're right. This is a part one because we need to come back and talk about what you see happening today. I do want you to just mention some of the people who you have mentored that folks see today. And I'm one, so I claim I am mentored by fire, by fire
and brimstone.
Oh my Lord!
Sometimes you
By
the
Cora Masters Barry. But I needed it. I always tell the story of how I called Cora Masters Barry one day and I was distraught. And we had gone through many phases of this really, really difficult time that I was in. I was, being, I want to say attacked and maybe there's a better word for it, but I was under the white supremacists. I was under their eye. They were paying attention to me and throwing a sink at me. And, it was a real hard time. And we had some emotional moments. We had to do a lot of strategy. When you talk about bringing the children and having them and your husband or your estranged husband at the hearing, those are some of the kinds of ideas that we had to employ during the time that I was going through the attacks against me. Just, different things. But this particular day, it felt like the worst of it all. And that probably was towards the very end of it. It's funny because that's how it goes when the attacks are raging and you just think, this is it. I'm done.
It's the darkest hours right before dawn.
It's right there. And I called you to tell you, listen, this is it. It's 400 news articles. They saying all these things about me. I'm plastered everywhere. I'm in every newspaper. It's terrible. And you said, oh my Lord, this is amazing. This is great. And I was like, I will never talk to this lady. This is my last conversation with Cora Masters Barry because they are trying to kill me. And you're sitting here telling me, what did you say?
I said, they don't waste that kind of ink on somebody who doesn't matter. You making a difference. You are making a difference. You are threatening them. Who's going to write about somebody who's doing nothing?
And you also told me, you said, you don't know what God can do. You said because you could be doing all the good in the world and never get one story told about you. But he's taking what you think is your worst moment and using it to elevate you. And look at me now. But, I don't know. Elevation comes with a lot.
It does. It all comes with responsibility. Right. I tell everybody, if you want to be an advocate, you got to be ready to sacrifice because there are sacrifices involved in it.
So tell us who you've mentored that we know.
I don't really like that word. Of people that have been in my life, I think probably of the ones that go the farthest back that you would know would start with Melanie.
Melanie Campbell, who is the president and CEO of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, and her organization is considered to be one of the big 8 civil rights groups across the country. I was just with
Melanie at the Urban League Conference.
Yeah, and she is the convener of the Black Women's Roundtable, which has been at the Black Women's Roundtable has saved a lot of women from the types of issues that we spoke about. Has been the foundation of women who are running for office, women who need training, resources. And you have definitely been her mentor. Give me somebody else.
Venus and Serena and Angela
you got to tell these people who these folks are. Angela could be anybody.
Well, these are all my friends.
Angela also Brooks is a senator. Not a state
she
senator.
She don't want to brag today.
But this is important. She's not a...
She why? She always wanted to be modest.
By the way, state senators are very important, so don't take this wrong, because state senators help move things in your local community. I'm just saying she is a United States senator. And I watched you help take her from county executive to becoming a senator, and it was not easy.
No.
That was hard.
One of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah, I remember you saying. You've done some hard things. Yes. I think I was up there in that group of hard things. But we are grateful for you. And I have to say, while I'm much younger, and I know what you mean when you say you're in relationship with people, because there's things I help to put you on to and hip you to, and we've had some back and forth about issues that I hope that I help to enhance, or what your understanding of different issues and sort of change your opinion, which I don't know if I did, but I tried. But I'm proud of you. right? Like, I am proud of you because I know the struggles of keeping the center open through all the different administrations and people trying to cut funding and not getting the support you deserve. You know, the convictions that you have, that we have shared, that we decided we ain't gonna go turn against our people, no matter who tells us we gotta denounce and call out and whatever. And we said no, we will handle it on the inside.
Right. Watch how you talk to me.
I really do want to deal with that for a second. That's one of the things I would love. If I had one wish, if somebody would say, if you could just have one thing that you could change, since you know, we on the other side of everything, I would want my people to stop being afraid to love the people who love us. I want our people to love a minister, Louis Farrakhan, or a Jesse Jackson, or Marion Barry, anybody that the larger community says is no good because they got another agenda, and we're walking around whispering like, it breaks my heart. And when you turn on the television and you turn on social media and you see these MAGA people,
they love their people.
They don't care,
and they're dying. By the way, the health care is cut. The food benefits, food security is cut.
You can't tell them nothing.
Everything is expensive.
But you know why, don't you? He has one thing that he hates who they hate. God, they together. That's
and
all
our
that
people.
They bond in hate, and we can't even bond in love.
Yeah, and that's the difference, is that they come together under hate, we not always right. There's things we've had to correct, self-correct. Sometimes you can't correct it, but we are bound by love. And that's a very different thing. But thank you, Cora Masters Barry.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Come on, all that stuff, them jewels you dropped, man.
Yeah, you put some jewels on us.
Yes. Y'all gonna feed me now?
Yes, love you.
You.
Thank you for joining us on the TMI show.
Yes,
Cora Masters Barry.
Thank you.
Shout out to Mama Cora, man. She always tells me something that I didn't know. I'm always amazed by her knowledge, her wisdom, her just understanding of the history of our people, and the way she's just so articulate.
Oh yeah, she's very intelligent.
Very, very sharp. And what's crazy, I didn't know that her mother ran for president 4 times and got a PhD at 6. Wow. She comes from a family of, education and just black excellence and black power.
Yeah, she always takes me back to that. Like when we're talking, I spend hours, as you know, in a day talking to her several times a week. It used to be every day. It's funny because you always go to the well when you're in trouble all the time. Then when things are kind of coasting, then you don't speak as much. So we've gone through several iterations of that. And at the most intense times in my life, and her life, by the way, because she's been through some things. We're on the phone, 5 hours from 6 o'clock in the morning, back and forth. I'll call you right back, going back and forth through different things and strategizing. And one of the things that she always does in the middle of it doesn't matter what we're talking about. I could be telling her about cell phones and how they work and whatever a problem is with the cell phone tower. And she'll be like, well, in 1970 so-and-so, when they started the blah, 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 and they started building the poles, we had an incident where, she always takes you back to the history. And I can be honest in saying that there's a lot of things that I don't know or didn't know until she started, encouraging me to go back and pull certain books or look certain things up. And then things made more sense, and that's why she said that she heard us talking while we were filming before she came on about this idea that you could be engaged, you could be civically engaged, you can be smart, you can have money, you can do all of that. But if you don't really know history, then things become kind of disjointed and they feel like one-offs when they're actually a part of a process.
That's a fact.
Yeah,
So shout out to her for always, enlightening us, and she brought some beautiful energy today.
Absolutely.
And she looked amazing.
She does. She does. And she's more than 80. I think she's 81, right? It has to be 81 because we were at 80th birthday party last year.
Yeah.
So she's 81 years old. She's moving around. She just came here from the Hamptons from an event for the Apollo and some other event. One of her good friends, Reggie Van Lee, is a major philanthropist. And, you know, he still keeps up with Cora. That's his girl.
That's right.
You know, and he's younger than her, older than us, but younger than her. But nevertheless, he keeps up with her. He keeps up with Susan Taylor, who used to be editor-in-chief at Essence Magazine, and she's also older. But, you know, nevertheless, or more seasoned, as they would say, you know, he's there with them. And that's what it's all about. Like, we don't get to forget. We don't get to forget. We don't get to leave our people behind. So shout out to Cora Masters Barry. That's my girl.
That's Mama Cora. That brings me to my I don't get it this week. Last week, Dr. Fauci testified before Congress. You know, he was questioned about COVID-19 and
Did he
the
really
vaccination.
testify?
Well, he was asked to testify. And he pled the fifth over 100 times. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of back and forth. A lot of people felt like he was justified in pleading the fifth because they felt this was a witch hunt and they were just trying to trip him up, and anything that he said they were trying to use to lock him up. Other people felt like he was admitting guilt. Mm-hmm. You know, and for my I don't get it this week is I've never been the biggest fan of Fauci. You know, I questioned a lot of his methods and tactics, a lot of things that he was saying I didn't really agree with. I always thought that COVID was something that we could build our natural immune system, but that was just my theory. I always felt that people talked about the vaccine more than they actually talked about being healthy. Talked about, you know, a lot of methods that we could have used, like elderberries and all the herbs and things, the natural herbs that we could have used, exercising, which I did during the pandemic. And a lot of people was critical of me because I was like, I don't want to put some vaccine into my body. So, you know, I've never been the biggest fan of Fauci. But when I look at this whole situation, you know, the criticism he's receiving, over 1 million people lost their lives in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was a serious thing. Like, they literally had morgues outside of hospitals.
Well, not per RFK, because RFK said
there
was no reason.
Yeah, we're gonna get to RFK.
He said there was no reason to separate people because the you call it the intensive care and all of that stuff was open.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people worked in hospitals who said that is 100% a lie.
Right.
You know, I know a lot of people who were inside hospitals while their loved ones, but when it first started, she said that the emergency rooms were so packed to the rim. So, he's another part of this. I don't get it. But what I really don't get is why people are mad at Fauci for saying to social distance and to stay away because the possibility is something might have happened. Like, we don't know. There's a new virus, and he was trying to figure it out. I didn't agree with a lot of things that he said. I wasn't, one of the main people saying anything about a vaccine. I just didn't agree with the vaccine. But why aren't people critical that Donald Trump was telling people to drink bleach? Right? They say Fauci had to be guilty because he pled the fifth over 100 times, but Donald Trump is on record of pleading the fifth over 400 times. About
sexual assault.
Yes. But
is
nobody
that what it was his case, right?
Yes, and he pled guilty. I mean, he pled the fifth over 400 times. And nobody's critical about that. But you
don't say nobody.
I mean, I don't
say nobody.
But
you have to assign the people you're talking about, because there's a lot of people who are critical.
Okay, I just didn't.
You talk about those people who you know are black MAGA and not just black MAGA, or people
that I hear coming out that are so angry with Fauci. Mm-hmm. Like people that I've normally hear being silent about everything are coming out saying, "Oh, why would you have to, plead the fifth if you wasn't guilty?" But I never heard none of these people say anything about Trump pleading the fifth over 400 times. So I'm not saying nobody, but I just don't understand why these people are so loud about these things, but so silent about other things. RFK has literally told people to stop taking vaccines, and we watch people have a measles outbreak that hasn't happened in years, right? So and there's nobody having these conversations, right? So I'm just
I hate when you say there's nobody having these conversations, and I want you to figure out what we call those people who are not having it. Is it Donald Trump lovers?
But it's not even just. I don't know if it's Donald Trump lovers because I haven't seen them speak up for Donald Trump.
Oh,
right. So I haven't heard them say anything. That's what I'm trying to say. So
it's a little different.
If I haven't heard you say anything about anybody and you just been quiet,
okay,
and then all of a sudden you come out and you say, I told y'all about Fauci, but we have a president that's in the White House that has done way more that people actually can see, and y'all not critical of that. And this is the person who is literally controlling the U.S., right? And nobody says nothing with Donald Trump awarded Fauci. Like, he literally gave Fauci awards, but nobody is saying anything about that. Now Fauci is the scapegoat for everything, right? And we literally have someone that's in charge of the Maha movement that is literally telling people shit that don't even make sense.
RFK also said he was asked by Congresswoman Summer Lee on camera at a hearing. He was testifying before Congress. And she said to him, she gave him the data on Black maternal health and how many Black women have died during childbirth and the challenges that Black women are facing while having children. And, she said, did you know these numbers? Some of it he acknowledged. And she said, so what is the plan for addressing Black maternal health? And RFK said, well, we're going to address all maternal issues. We're going to work with it. And she said, no, I know, but Black people, Black women are experiencing specific issues. And there is a rising concern around Black women not being able to take children either to full term or even in labor. These things are happening. Death, basically, either the baby or the mother. And he said, well, again, we have to address all communities. And she said, well, what about the problem is with Black women, not with these other communities? And he said, that's DEI. That's what he said on camera. I've stated this on the show before. Maybe this time, if somebody clips it, people will actually care.
The fact that we have such levels of incompetency in charge of health. Like, health is the most serious thing. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care how much fame you got. If you don't have health, you don't have nothing. And we have levels of incompetency in our health department.
And let me say, to give my opinion, you want my opinion on the Fauci thing?
Yes.
My opinion is that I was having a conversation with an elected official in New York City who is trying to do, and it was not Mayor Mamdani, it was another person who's really trying to do incredible work, transformative work. And I told you about this conversation. And they were bringing some frustrations to me about some of the challenges around breaking through the red tape and trying to get resources to the communities that really, really need it. And they were giving me a whole thing. And I said, we think sometimes because it's new people, a new day, new time, new whatever, or we like the way a person looks, and like a Mamdani, we're all into, Mamdani, go, we're cheering him on, that it has changed inherently racist systems. Now, you have to fight every day if that's what you're going to be. That's why you can't just be against racism. You have to be anti-racist, meaning that you are working every single day to fight racism, right? That takes boots on the ground, feet to the pavement. But we are in inherently racist, inherently corrupt systems. And Fauci was operating in that. We can't sit up here and act like, because I know people who are like, I love Fauci. Because he was cute and cool and funny on TV, and he was Fauci. He's a Fauci man. But that does not mean that he is not operating with a system that has historically disenfranchised Americans, not just black, but all people. So I would not doubt I would put my life savings on the fact that if he stated all the clarity around everything and he didn't plead the fifth, and we had all the documents and everything, like we could be there like a bubble or like the glass ball where we could see it exactly as it happened and no human can change it, that there would be plenty of things that we would disagree with. And we would say, not only is this wrong, but it's wrong. And still y'all are telling us this. That's that's the facts. And I would say that about Obama. I would say that about whatever, because that the system is inherently corrupt and problematic and challenged and all the things. But I do not believe that Fauci went to work every day and said, let me go help kill people and just lie like these people do that's in the administration right now.
I mean, I wouldn't say I believe that. I believe that, there was a play involved. I think when you look at the pharmaceutical companies, you talk about vaccinations, people made billions of dollars and off scare tactics.
Perhaps.
Right? And I think that there were a lot of different methods that could have been used other than that. I don't know about the social distancing because I'm not really mad about social distancing.
I'm social distanced today.
Yeah, because
I remember when your mother was like, get back from me.
Yeah.
She didn't want nobody around her.
So I don't know if I'm mad that they took precautions, to separate, especially when you had a new virus that nobody knew exactly what was happening.
My son used to wear his mask across his nose and the top of his lip. That was where your mask used to be, on your nose and on top of your lip. My mother wore hers like
I wasn't with it. I wasn't really with it. I did what I had to do throughout the time, but I was never with it. And I worked out. We had our own little workout on Instagram. Shout out to the whole team. They used to come out every day. We did our workout. Shout out to I was there every day. You know what I'm saying? And we had our workout, and we made sure that we ate properly. We made sure that we had the right, nutrients in our bodies. And we did things that was going to make us healthy so that our immune system could fight against any virus. But I just think when I'm looking at it, even though, like I said, I'm not the biggest Fauci fan, but I'm just looking like, how does he become the scapegoat for everything? Right? Especially when we got an administration right now that's literally telling us shit that doesn't make sense. And even in that time, when Trump was the president, because Trump was the president when it first happened, and he was telling people literally to drink bleach.
The bleach thing is bad. That's bad.
No,
when he was throwing
and people
the paper towels to the people
if you go
in
online,
Puerto Rico,
people drank bleach.
That's terrible. But hopefully, more people, I'm sure more people had their good sense than to listen to him.
But some people did.
What is actually criminal and what we should be talking about, which has nothing to do with Fauci or Biden or anybody else, it is squarely on the Trump administration, is the fact that they knew there was a virus and didn't tell anybody, right? That's the real crime is in them having months in advance knowledge that a serious virus was moving around. Because if you remember, you just go back and check the record. It was like December. I'm sure it was December. We found out about this virus, at least we were starting to hear about it in February, and then in March, everything shuts down. Yep. December, I believe I remember hearing something, but let's just go with January. This was going on from then, that they knew something was happening and that it was an outbreak. They knew it. And they did not tell us anything until March. okay, or they didn't shut anything down until March, which I do believe that the shutdown was necessary. And the reason why I think it was necessary is because I know of entire families that died. See, your position and where you and I had many knockdown, drag out fights and arguments around this whole being healthy, eating your vitamins and vegetables, or taking your vitamins and eating your vegetables and doing all of that, is that the problem with that concept is if you were already pretty much healthy, you were already into vitamins and all of that, the way that we're even healthier now than we were back then, but the way that we were at that time, and you already had the head start of being that way, it's easy to say, just shore up your immune system, make sure that you taking your vitamins. But the virus was traveling rapidly with people who had never had vitamins, don't even have money to go get it.
And that's what I'm saying. There was
obesity.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. And what I kept telling people, if you are in good health, if you do not have pre-existing
you
health
shouldn't
issues,
have to take the
you should be building up
vaccine.
your immune system, because our immune system is built to fight off viruses. And as long as it's inside the universe and it's moving around, you getting a little piece and your body is creating antibodies. And that's what happens, and that's how we survive. You know, and I just didn't believe that we should be telling perfectly healthy people to put vaccines in their body that didn't know how their body was going to react to those vaccines.
Never agreed with forcing people to take a vaccine. Yeah. I never agreed with that. I never agreed with it, but it also was the type of situation, you know, you have to pick, you have to pick your battles in this country. A lot of people, I remember one young lady having a holy town damn fit because she wanted us to take on the fight against the government and the COVID-19 stuff and the vaccines. Yeah. And she was pissed with us that we were not on that issue. Yeah. Meanwhile, we dealing with police accountability. We fighting for Breonna Taylor. We got all these other things going on. And she was pissed off that we would not get into that. And the thing is that there are people who have scientific knowledge and understanding who are better suited to become engaged over here when you got all this other stuff. Like, we would never have brought, even though Breonna Taylor's family still has not received full justice, we still made it all the way to where people had to go before courts and take immunity and everything, and the truth is out there. We know the truth, and it was big. It was work. That wasn't just, you know. And if we had been out there talking about we fighting against the vaccine, we would have never been able to complete that process, which is still not complete, but to get through that, because they would have marginalized us. Like, they would have silenced our voices. We're already in enough fights as it damn is. And we weren't knowledgeable enough to tell somebody that we just fighting against. And we didn't even know if we were right.
That wasn't exactly. I was just going off common sense that I had, and I wasn't advising anybody what to do. I'm saying what I was doing for me. And if you believed in what I was doing, then come along. I'm not telling you, if you felt like you needed to take a vaccine for you and that made you feel comfortable, fine. I'm just saying I wasn't doing it because I didn't believe that my body wasn't strong enough to fight off any virus that they put into the universe.
Exactly. You know? Well, there's that.
That brings us to the end of another episode. Thank you for tuning in to the TMI podcast. We love you. Continue to support us. Make us the #1 podcast in the world. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. Tell us about some topics you might want us to talk about. Tell us about guests you might want to see. We're going to have some good guests coming up, so make sure that you tune in. I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D. Mary's not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic.
Peace. Listen to the TMI podcast on the Black Effect Network, on iHeartRadio, or anywhere podcasts are available.
Or catch the video version on YouTube at TMI Show PC.